March 10th, 2025. The 72nd Mechanized Brigade, while continuing reconnaissance operation in the Donetsk region, detects a Russian convoy. Noticing that Russian armored vehicles are entering the area in separate groups, Ukrainian forces immediately begin preparations and decide to attack the convoy. The first target is the vehicle at the front of the convoy. While neutralizing this vehicle, Ukrainian forces continue firing at the other vehicles in the group. During the attack, Ukrainian artillery fire also put significant pressure on the Russian units, dealing a heavy blow to the convoy. Seeing that the Russian convoy is dispersing and attempting to move forward in separate directions, Ukrainian forces target and destroy Russian tanks using vampire drones. Russian armored vehicles struggling to advance in difficult terrain are neutralized with powerful bombs. By the end of the operation, a significant number of Russian armored vehicles are destroyed, completely preventing any further Russian entry into the region. This successful operation stands as an example of Ukraine's effective use of aerial reconnaissance power and drone technology for impactful strikes. March 10, 2025, the 150th Separate Reconnaissance Battalion identified a Russian Strela 10 air defense missile system in the Donetsk region. Ukrainian forces monitored the system's movements for some time using unmanned aerial vehicles. After thoroughly analyzing the defensive position of the Strela 10 and the surrounding Russian personnel, the decision was made to launch an operation. Ukrainian forces sent FPV drones to attack the target. As the drone approached, the Russian soldiers inside the Strela 10 noticed the incoming threat. However, their awareness was not enough to prevent the attack. The drone hit the target with perfect precision, causing a massive explosion. The explosion triggered the munitions inside the Strela 10, resulting in a chain reaction and a significant detonation. As a result, the Strela 10 was completely neutralized and the Russian personnel inside were killed. This operation, carried out by Ukrainian forces, effectively disabled a Russian air defense system, opening up more space for Ukrainian air operations in the region. Additionally, such attacks undermine the confidence of Russian forces in their air defense systems while continuing to demonstrate Ukraine's effective use of drone technology. March 10, 2025. Apache 81 OEMBR FPV pilots have shared footage of their operations targeting Russian forces in the region. The video compilation showcases Ukrainian forces identifying enemy positions and carrying out high-precision drone strikes to neutralize them. Throughout the operation, lone Russian infantrymen are detected and directly targeted by FPV drones. Russian soldiers attempting to move across open terrain try to escape once they spot the incoming drones. However, the FPV drones, with their high speed and maneuverability, manage to hit their targets with pinpoint accuracy. The attacks not only incapacitate enemy personnel, but also completely destroy Russian bunkers and the military equipment housed within them. Following the explosions, munitions depots and various military supplies detonate, severely damaging the Russian defensive line. The footage clearly shows that Russian forces are helpless against these attacks and unable to find defensive positions. Through these operations, Ukrainian forces not only clear the area of enemy elements, but also secure the region, gaining a strategic advantage. March 11, 2025. In the east of Pokrovsk, near the village of Tarasovka, the 33rd Motorized Infantry Regiment, part of the 20th Guard Regiment, detects a Russian tank camouflaged within a forest area. Despite the tank being concealed among the trees, it is spotted by Ukrainian reconnaissance drones. Ukrainian operators carefully scan the surroundings to ensure there are no Russian infantry present in the area. Once the area is secured, the attack on the tank begins. An FPV drone strikes a vulnerable point on the tank, resulting in a powerful explosion. The blast causes severe damage to the tank, rendering it inoperable. After assessing the situation, Ukrainian forces determined that the tank has been completely destroyed, eliminating the need for a second drone strike. Although Russian forces attempt to camouflage their tanks in forested areas, Ukrainian advanced drone technology has rendered such tactics ineffective. This operation demonstrates how drone capabilities are negating traditional concealment tactics and further weakening the enemy's position. March 10, 2025. The Phoenix unit of the Ukrainian army has neutralized numerous Russian troops and military equipment over the past week. The footage of this successful operation once again highlights the effectiveness of Ukraine's modern warfare strategy. During the operation, a Russian shelter discovered in the region was first targeted with consecutive drone strikes, completely destroying it. After neutralizing the enemy forces inside the shelter, Ukrainian reconnaissance drones focused on identifying larger targets. Although Russian armored vehicles were camouflaged and deployed among wooded areas and various structures, they were detected thanks to the Phoenix unit's advanced reconnaissance systems. Each targeted armored vehicle was destroyed one by one through FPV drone strikes. According to reports, at the end of the operation, over 200 Russian targets were eliminated within a week. These targets included Russian infantry, shelters, armored vehicles, and military equipment. As it becomes almost impossible for Russian forces to evade Ukrainian aerial reconnaissance systems, the Ukrainian army further strengthens its control over the region. March 10, 2025. The WASP unit of the Ukrainian forces conducted an unusual reconnaissance near Udakny in the Donetsk region. During this reconnaissance, a Russian soldier was discovered hiding inside a barrel. After the Ukrainian reconnaissance drone approached the target and confirmed the location's accuracy, the operator moved forward with the attack. The drone carried out a precise bombing strike on the Russian soldier hidden inside the barrel. As a result of the powerful explosion, the barrel was completely destroyed, and the Russian infantryman lost his life. This operation highlights the extraordinary methods Russian forces have resorted to in order to evade Ukrainian drone attacks and demonstrates the failure of these efforts. March 10, 2025. The 59th Motorized Brigade of the Ukrainian Army launched an operation after detecting Russian forces stationed in the villages of Novoy, Lizavetivka, and Preobrazhenka in the Donetsk region. In the first footage, Ukrainian reconnaissance drones identified Russian troops stationed inside a large abandoned building in the area. After confirming the target, the enemy forces were neutralized through FPV drone strikes and air attacks. The operation did not stop there. Ukrainian forces continued to identify and target other Russian positions in the region, carrying out effective strikes. Armored vehicles, bunkers, and ammunition depots were destroyed one by one. As a result of the operation, numerous Russian targets were eliminated, inflicting heavy losses on enemy forces. The Ukrainian army's precise reconnaissance systems and effective drone strikes have made it impossible for Russian forces to securely position themselves in the region. March 11, 2025. The 61st Separate Mechanized Brigade continues its reconnaissance operations in the Kursk region, where 2 Russian infantrymen are detected. However, tensions between these soldiers lead to a tragic outcome. One infantryman points his weapon at the other and opens fire, ending his comrade's life. The footage provides no information about the nature of the dispute between the 2 Russian soldiers, but the incident unfolds in a highly dramatic manner. Reports do not offer further details about the tragic event, and uncertainty remains regarding what triggered the confrontation. These types of internal conflicts highlight the destructive effects of war and the psychological strain on soldiers. What are your thoughts on this matter? Feel free to share your comments with us. March 8, 2025. Ukrainian forces have been carrying out successful operations targeting Russian logistical lines and communication systems in the region. These operations aim to significantly weaken the operational capacity of Russian troops. Hidden or abandoned Russian vehicles in the area are carefully detected and targeted by reconnaissance drones. Drone strikes effectively neutralize these vehicles, thereby hindering the movement of Russian forces in the region. At the same time, Russian communication devices are identified and destroyed. The destruction of these devices severely disrupts the coordination and communication of Russian troops in the area. As a result of the operation, Russian logistical lines and communication systems suffer a serious blow, disrupting Russian forces' operations in the region. The Ukrainian army's successful strikes significantly weakened the efficiency and effectiveness of Russian forces in the area. March 10, 2025, the 4th Freedom Force Battalion of the National Guard Brigade Rubizh continues its reconnaissance operations in the region, where a Russian infantryman lying motionless in the forested area is detected. Since the soldier shows no movement, he is carefully monitored. After the Ukrainian drone operator confirms the target, a bomb is dropped on him. The intensity of the explosion triggers the ammunition the Russian infantryman was carrying, causing a large blast, and the Russian soldier is killed. March 10, 2025. 2 soldiers from the 425th Separate Assault Regiment, Skala, come face-to-face with Russian forces in the direction of Pokovskoya. A group of 4 Russian infantry tries to encircle the Ukrainian soldiers. However, despite being outnumbered, the Ukrainian soldiers resist, and the conflict continues for some time. During this period, Ukrainian forces provide air support through drones, forcing the Russian infantry to retreat. This support demoralizes the Russian group, while Ukrainian infantry, emerging from their positions, targets the retreating Russian soldiers. As a result of the attacks, 2 Russian infantrymen are shot and killed, and 2 other Russian soldiers are captured. Ukraine's successful air support and effective operations showcase the superiority of Ukrainian soldiers who, despite being outnumbered, engage in the fight with bravery and determination. This operation delivers a well-planned and effective response to enemy forces, achieving significant strategic gains. March 10, 2025. Soldiers from the 144th Special Operations Center detect Russian forces inside an abandoned, ruined building near Pokrovsk. Following the reconnaissance, the Ukrainian infantry group is sent to the area, where they plant mines around the building. After the explosion, they move into action. After the explosion, the Ukrainian forces use drones to make a loudspeaker call, instructing the Russian infantry to surrender. The Russian soldiers comply, signaling their intention to surrender by waving a white cloth. Raising their hands in the air, the Russian infantrymen announce their surrender and exit the building. Subsequently, 5 more Russian infantrymen decide to surrender and join the others. Ukrainian forces assist the surrendered Russian soldiers, helping them overcome obstacles. As a result of the operation, 9 Russian soldiers are captured. The Ukrainian forces take the prisoners into a room and gather general information from them. The surrender of Russian soldiers highlights Ukraine's superiority in the region and showcases its effective operational strategies. March 9, 2025. Pilots from the 32nd Brigade detect a Russian vehicle moving in the direction of Pokrovsky. The vehicle is completely packed and entirely defenseless. Assessing the situation, Ukrainian forces take action and send a drone after the vehicle. The Ukrainian drone operator successfully hits the target. After the explosion, the vehicle and all the Russian infantry inside are neutralized. This operation achieves significant success due to the vulnerability of the Russian vehicle and the effective strategy of the Ukrainian forces, ensuring the efficient destruction of enemy targets. March 8, 2025. Personnel from the 4th Battalion, Freedom Force of the National Guard's 4th Brigade Rubizh detect a Russian shelter where enemy forces are stationed. The shelter is deeply built underground to secure the safety of Russian soldiers. After assessing the situation, Ukrainian forces send a drone to target the shelter. The drone approaches and directly attacks the shelter. The explosion completely destroys the shelter. Immediately after the explosion, Russian soldiers attempt to escape from the rubble of the shelter. Trapped under the soil, the soldiers struggle to crawl out through a narrow hole. 2 Russian infantrymen decide to surrender, raising their hands and approaching Ukrainian forces. This gesture indicates that they pose no threat and are surrendering. Ukrainian forces carefully approach the 2 surrendered Russian infantrymen. Once they are close enough, the soldiers lie down on the ground to show complete compliance. The Ukrainian forces secure the soldiers by binding their hands and begin an interrogation to gather intelligence. This procedure reflects Ukraine's strategic intelligence gathering and commitment to adhering to post-conflict human rights principles. After obtaining the intelligence, Ukrainian forces will use this information in the later stages of the war to more effectively target other enemy elements in the region. March 8, 2025, the 107th Ground Defense Brigade successfully completes a compilation operation showcasing the effects of drone strikes against Russian infantry in the region. The footage clearly reveals moments when Russian infantry, separated from their groups, are detected and vulnerably hunted by Ukrainian drones. Russian soldiers in the area experience great panic as enemy drones identify and target them. Some attempt to defend themselves against the drones, but these efforts only lead to their quicker neutralization. Desperately, some Russian soldiers try to shoot down the drones with their weapons, but due to poor timing and a lack of skill, they are targeted and struck by the drones. These efforts lead to fatal consequences for the Russian infantry. Many soldiers do not even have the opportunity to abandon their positions before the first drone attack, leaving them no chance to thwart the strikes. Each Russian infantryman is individually targeted, neutralized, and incapacitated. At the end of the operation, a significant number of Russian infantry are killed and destroyed. Ukrainian forces have delivered a heavy blow to the Russian units in the region, gaining a strategically important advantage. The operation once again demonstrates the superiority of Ukrainian drone technology, and through the vulnerability and desperation of the Russian infantry, a major victory is achieved in the region. March 2025. The 8th Special Purpose Regiment of the Ukrainian Army detects a small group of Russian infantry in the Kursk region. The Russian soldiers are hiding behind an electrical cabin, unaware that they are being watched by a Ukrainian reconnaissance drone from a distance. The drone carefully approaches its targets, waiting for the right moment to strike. Just as the attack is launched, the Russian infantry realizes the threat and quickly throws themselves to the ground. However, this does not prevent the strike. The drone directly hits its targets, causing a massive explosion that neutralizes most of the infantry on the spot. Identifying a few surviving Russian soldiers, Ukrainian forces send another FPV drone for a second attack. Following consecutive explosions, only one Russian soldier manages to escape while the rest are eliminated. Ukrainian forces continue reconnaissance operations to ensure all enemy elements in the area are neutralized. Drone operators detect additional Russian soldiers hiding nearby and launch new attacks. As a result, Russian forces in the Kursk region suffer a major blow, further solidifying Ukrainian dominance in the area. March 6, 2025, Russian forces launched a major assault early in the morning, deploying an armored vehicle convoy consisting of more than 20 pieces of equipment. This convoy was bolstered by air combat vehicles, engineering tools, and other military hardware. The goal was to reach the positions of the 24th King Danilo Motorized Rifle Brigade and capture the area. As the convoy advanced at high speed, Ukrainian forces, thanks to their intelligence network in the region, quickly detected the approaching Russian convoy. Ukrainian commandos assessed the situation and began preparing to respond at the right moment. Ukrainian forces were well prepared for this attack. With extensive experience in target identification and precision strikes, the Ukrainian army first engaged the convoy with artillery fire. The effective artillery bombardment disrupted the convoy's formation and dealt the first blow. These strikes slowed the convoy's advance and disrupted the Russian plans. Following the artillery barrage, Ukraine deployed unmanned aerial vehicles that moved deep into enemy lines to target critical points and armored vehicles within the Russian convoy. The Russian forces were caught off guard by the fierce resistance they encountered. Ukraine's UAVs successfully targeted and destroyed several armored vehicles, inflicting significant damage. The strategy of combining artillery strikes with UAV attacks was designed to restrict the enemy's mobility and neutralize the convoy. These successful assaults had a demoralizing effect on the Russian convoy, causing it to scatter and lose its cohesion. As the convoy's structure quickly disintegrated, vehicles scattered in various directions. Some Russian vehicles deployed infantry to defend positions, attempting to reinforce the area. However, Ukrainian forces, utilizing UAVs, targeted these soldiers, leaving them no opportunity to escape. The infantry, attempting to find shelter to survive, were hunted down one by Ukraine's powerful air support. During the operation, Ukrainian forces eliminated a significant portion of the Russian infantry and completely disrupted their retreat. As a result, some Russian units that managed to survive briefly were forced to retreat. Ultimately, the Russian military suffered heavy losses. At least 14 pieces of Russian equipment were destroyed or abandoned on the battlefield. The destroyed equipment included armored vehicles, engineering vehicles, artillery pieces, and other combat machines. 11 vehicles were completely destroyed and 5 suffered heavy damage. In addition to equipment losses, Russian forces also suffered significant human casualties. With approximately 25 units of equipment in use, early assessments suggest that at least 33 Russian soldiers were killed or severely wounded. These losses dealt a severe blow to Russian morale, while the Ukrainian defense strategies and effective attacks made this operation a major success. March 7, 2025, the Berdyansk border guards are preparing for an attack on a Russian position in the direction of Zaporizhia. A Ukrainian drone is dispatched to the area to conduct reconnaissance and target the Russian forces. While surveying the area, a Russian infantryman is observed moving around the position. The Ukrainian drone operator begins tracking the soldier, but the Russian soldier remains unaware of the drone's presence. The drone operator waits for the perfect moment to strike. When the time is right, the operator launches a precise attack, hitting the shelter where the Russian infantryman is taking cover. The explosion captured by the drone's FPV camera reveals a net inside the shelter. This net was likely intended as a form of protection against drone attacks. However, it proves to be ineffective against the drone's strike. The explosion results in the death of the Russian soldier. These types of attacks highlight the limitations of Russia's defensive measures against drones. Despite efforts to develop various protection methods, many of these fail when faced with Ukraine's highly accurate and effective drone strikes. The high precision and low cost of drones have emerged as a game-changing factor in modern warfare, and Russian forces are increasingly vulnerable to these types of assaults. This shift in combat tactics is significantly altering the dynamics of the battlefield, making it more difficult for Russia to protect its positions from drone attacks. March 7, 2025, the 14th Chervona-Kalina Battalion of the National Guard swiftly mobilized after identifying Russian positions in the villages of Vovche and Prohrez in the Donetsk region. Intelligence teams quickly reported enemy lines to the Ukrainian forces, and strategic preparations were immediately initiated. Ukrainian artillery units then launched a successful attack on the enemy's positions. The initial artillery strikes targeted Russian howitzers, resulting in their destruction. Ukraine's strong and precise artillery bombardments wiped out much of the enemy's equipment. The explosion of Russian howitzers also rendered nearby Russian military vehicles and equipment ineffective. Ukrainian artillery continued to shake the ground, launching successive attacks on Russian lines. This constant pressure disrupted the Russian forces' order while also causing significant losses. Russian infantry was heavily hit by Ukraine's regular and precise artillery fire. The explosions targeted not only Russian armored vehicles but also the infantry. Many Russian soldiers lost their lives as a result of these blasts. In the harsh conditions of war, most of the surviving Russian infantry were neutralized without the chance to flee. Ukrainian forces did not stop there. They also detected the motorcycles used by surviving Russian infantry to escape the area quickly. These motorcycles were providing Russian soldiers with an escape route, weakening Ukraine's chances of a counterattack. However, Ukrainian artillery successfully targeted and destroyed these motorcycles, severely limiting the Russians' ability to retreat. The remaining soldiers were left vulnerable to the relentless attacks of the Ukrainian forces. March 7, 2025. On the Sumy front, border guards identified 3 Russian invaders advancing towards Ukrainian positions. Moving on foot in open terrain during wartime was an extremely dangerous maneuver. The Russian infantry was unaware that a Ukrainian drone was tracking them, presenting a perfect opportunity for Ukraine's forces. Ukrainian forces quickly took action and launched a mortar attack. In the first strike, precise mortar fire delivered a significant blow to the area where the Russian infantry was located. The explosions left wounded Russian soldiers unable to move, but Ukrainian forces did not stop after the first strike. The wounded Russian soldiers had no chance to escape. Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles soon arrived and launched a second attack on the injured soldiers. Drone operators made a precise bomb strike, preparing the end for the Russian soldiers. The bomb hit its target directly, and all 3 Russian soldiers lost their lives. This operation became a great success thanks to the coordinated effort of Ukrainian forces. After the Russian invaders entered the positions, the attack demonstrated once again how vulnerable enemy troops were when moving in open terrain and exposed to Ukrainian drones and mortar fire. As a result of this operation, 3 Russian soldiers were killed, and Ukrainian forces achieved a significant victory in this area. March 7, 2025, Russian invaders are actively employing small group tactics. Large and open units are easily targeted by Ukraine's advanced reconnaissance and strike systems. Drones, artillery systems, and unmanned aerial vehicles can carry out attacks on large convoys or armored groups, resulting in significant losses. As a result, Russia is shifting to smaller group tactics, opting for a more flexible and dispersed structure. The 60th Motorized Rifle Brigade sent an FPV drone to monitor the movements of a Russian group in the area. The drone locks onto the target and dives directly. The blast killed most of the Russian infantry around the vehicle, but 1 soldier managed to survive. The surviving Russian infantryman attempted to evade the drone attack by maneuvering around the wreckage of the vehicle. However, this attempt was short-lived. The Ukrainian FPV drone, with its high maneuverability, tracked the soldier's movements and quickly neutralized him. As a result, a significant portion of the Russian soldiers in the area were eliminated. This operation highlights the success of Ukraine's small, fast, and highly precise FPV drones in tracking and effectively targeting Russian troops. These types of attacks have become one of Ukraine's effective combat methods, dealing significant losses to Russian forces at a low cost. March 7, 2025, members of the Special Operations Forces are conducting a carefully planned operation against enemy positions in the Kursk region. Ukrainian infantry moving with stealth in forested terrain are perfectly camouflaged as they infiltrate the Russian lines. The enemy resists for a while without realizing the approaching Ukrainian forces. However, thanks to Ukraine's experienced and coordinated operation, the Russian units are gradually neutralized. The Ukrainian infantry carries out the attack with professional precision, preventing the Russian soldiers from responding. As a result of the operation, 8 Russian soldiers are killed. Ukraine's success in such night or forest operations demonstrates the effectiveness of local tactics and high security measures. These targeted operations exemplify Ukraine's strategy of isolating and weakening the enemy. March 8, 2025. One of the objectives of Ukrainian forces in the region is to completely destroy all transportation vehicles along Russian supply routes. When logistics are paralyzed, the enemy's attacks are reduced and they are forced to approach Ukrainian positions. This demoralizes the enemy and restricts their attack plans. Ukrainian forces detect and destroy all moving or stationary vehicles in the area. Ukraine is attempting to slow down Russia's progress in this way, targeting supply lines to pressure the enemy logistically. Destroying a transportation vehicle not only eliminates a transport vehicle, but also causes the loss of materials, ammunition, or soldiers it carries. This significantly reduces Russia's operational capacity on the battlefield. Additionally, destroying transportation vehicles limits the mobility of Russian forces, allowing Ukraine's smaller and more agile units to carry out attacks. Cutting off enemy supply lines isolates Russian forces on the front, weakens their maneuverability, and helps Ukraine gain strategic superiority. Moreover, Ukraine is using this tactic as a tool to demoralize Russia. Attacks on enemy supply lines force Russian soldiers to fight without logistical support, leading to a loss of morale. These strategic strikes by Ukraine have a significant long-term impact, making it increasingly difficult for the Russian army to maintain its sustainability. March 4th, 2025. In the Luhansk region, the Squall border guards carry out a significant operation targeting Russian occupiers' equipment within their defensive positions. Ukrainian drone operators systematically identify and neutralize various communication devices used by Russian forces, effectively disrupting their ability to coordinate movements and relay information. This operation serves as yet another example of Ukraine's ongoing efforts to dismantle Russia's battlefield communication infrastructure. Russian forces rely on multiple communication systems to maintain coordination among their units. Many troops use the R187P1 AZART digital encrypted radios, while others still depend on outdated R168 models or even commercial Motorola devices. In addition, the Russian military utilizes satellite communication networks and, when necessary, civilian cellular networks to support its battlefield communications. However, Ukraine's advanced electronic warfare capabilities have rendered many of these systems ineffective, creating significant challenges for Russian command structures. By targeting and disrupting Russia's communication networks, Ukraine gains a considerable tactical advantage. Systems such as the Stugnya and Bukovel AD jam Russian radio signals, severing critical links between frontline units and their command centers. Meanwhile, Ukrainian intelligence teams intercept encrypted Russian radio transmissions, extracting vital battlefield information that is subsequently used to gain the upper hand in combat scenarios. In numerous instances, Russian troops are forced to communicate without encryption, exposing their conversations to Ukrainian forces and further compromising their operations. Ukrainian drone teams have also demonstrated remarkable precision in tracking Russian radio signals to pinpoint enemy positions, enabling targeted strikes on command posts and frontline units. Through the combined use of electronic warfare, intelligence gathering, and drone reconnaissance, Ukraine effectively isolates Russian troops, weakens their organizational structure, and shifts the battlefield dynamics in its favor. This strategy highlights Ukraine's technological superiority and its continued success in leveraging modern warfare techniques to outmaneuver Russian forces. The general situation of the war is at a critical turning point, with both sides striving to gain superiority over each other by utilizing advanced military technology and tactics, but with significant losses on both sides. Ukraine's recent successful drone and artillery strikes continue to severely challenge Russia's defense strategies, which are heavily reliant on large convoys. In particular, the destruction of Russian armored vehicles by Ukrainian FPV drones on March 7, 2025 stands out as a pivotal event altering the dynamics of the war. These small, fast, and highly precise attacks allow Ukraine to inflict considerable damage at a low cost, leaving Russian forces increasingly vulnerable. In response, Russia has turned to small group tactics. These strategies are employed to protect large units and armored vehicles from Ukraine's precise strikes. However, this strategy has its own challenges, particularly as Ukrainian attacks on Russia's logistics lines are restricting the movement capabilities of the Russian military on the battlefield. Ukraine has gained a significant strategic advantage by targeting the enemy's transportation vehicles and supply lines. As Russian forces increasingly struggle with logistical issues, Ukraine's pressures are making it difficult for Russia to sustain its war efforts. Recent battles, particularly in the Donetsk and Zaporizhzhia regions, have led to intense clashes between Ukrainian and Russian forces in close proximity. Ukraine has successfully targeted Russian convoys and defensive lines with artillery and drone strikes, inflicting heavy casualties. These successes highlight not only Ukraine's advanced military technology, but also its superior intelligence and rapid reaction capabilities. Moreover, Ukraine's morale and motivation are evident in every aspect of the conflict. Conversely, Russia's heavy losses and logistical challenges have led to a decline in morale. On the other hand, Russia's recent airstrikes and engineering vehicle assaults on Ukrainian positions have been an attempt to weaken Ukraine's defense strategies. However, Ukraine has shown resilience and often proves successful in repelling these attacks. Particularly on March 8, 2025, Ukraine's strikes on Russia's logistics lines significantly slowed Russia's advance and crippled its supply systems. Such operations enhance Ukraine's ability to influence the long-term course of the war, while Russia is confronted with serious issues regarding the sustainability of its military campaign. In light of all these developments, it can be said that the war has entered a phase of significant challenges for both sides. Ukraine's strategic advantages, Russia's heavy losses and logistical difficulties could ultimately alter the long-term outcomes of the conflict.
Russian forces continue pushing forward, sending in waves of infantry and armored vehicles. But Ukrainian defenders are striking back with precision drone strikes, artillery fire, and coordinated ambushes. Key supply routes, enemy convoys, and fortified positions have all come under attack, weakening Russia's ability to sustain its offensives. Meanwhile, FPV drones and long-range strikes are making sure no escaping troops or reinforcements go unnoticed. Let's break down what happened on the front lines. March 16, 2025. A Russian convoy is attempting to break through Ukrainian defensive lines near Touretsk. A reconnaissance drone from the 28th Mechanized Brigade detects the movement and immediately coordinates a response. One of the armored vehicles attempted to use thick smoke as cover, hoping to evade detection. Within moments, a precision strike followed, ensuring there was no escape. As Ukrainian forces move to eliminate the advancing tanks, two of them attempt to retreat, but they are struck and destroyed before they can escape. Meanwhile, a drone is deployed to take out Russian communication antennas. A Russian Mavic drone attempts to intercept and shoot it down, but fails. The mission is a success. As the battle unfolds, Russian soldiers flee the area, seeking cover in trenches and nearby forests. But they are quickly detected and systematically eliminated. March 1st, 2025. An infantry group of the 225th Separate Assault Regiment, under the command of Hetman Ivan Volodymyrovich, call sign Shilyak, was clearing a building in the Pokrovsk direction when they encountered a basement full of occupiers. Ukrainian soldiers discovered filled beehives in the area. The soldiers used up all their grenades, but the enemy continued to resist. After some time, two beehives with Ukrainian combat bees were dropped into the basement with the Russians. The occupiers were eliminated. March 1st, 2025. In the Kharkiv region, Russian bunkers and abandoned buildings used as transit points were systematically destroyed. The operation primarily relied on kamikaze drones and Thermite systems, both chosen for their precision and destructive capability. Thermite was particularly effective in demolishing structures used as passage shelters, as it burns at extremely high temperatures, melting through metal and weakening concrete foundations. By ensuring these buildings were completely unusable, Ukrainian forces eliminated key enemy hiding spots and forced Russian troops into open terrain. Once exposed, they became easy targets for follow-up drone and artillery strikes, further crippling enemy movements in the region. March 8th to 9th, 2025. You are now witnessing the battle against the attacks on the 3rd Assault Brigade in the same region. During this engagement, Ukrainian forces destroyed 1 tank, 2 infantry fighting vehicles, 1 truck, 1 Nona self-propelled artillery system, 2 anti-drone antennae, and multiple enemy infantry units. The Nona artillery system was targeted first to eliminate indirect fire support. Anti-drone antennae were taken out to weaken Russian electronic defenses, making further UAV operations more effective. With armored support gone and communication disrupted, Russian infantry was left vulnerable. March 15, 2025, Donetsk region. A Russian soldier advancing in open terrain was detected. The FPV drone operator first exhausted the enemy, limiting his movement, and then directly struck the target, eliminating him. A reconnaissance drone later confirmed the hit. The invader was neutralized. Two more Russian soldiers emerging from the forest line were spotted. The FPV drone locked onto one of them and successfully took him out. Another enemy eliminated. While patrolling enemy supply routes, a Russian truck was identified. An FPV drone quickly tracked the vehicle and crashed directly into it. A reconnaissance drone was deployed, confirming the vehicle was completely burned out. Target destroyed. A group of Russian infantry advancing through the tree line was also detected. An FPV drone was directed to their last known location and struck the target with precision. As a result of the attack, one invader was severely wounded and lost a limb. March 17, 2025, Kharkiv region. An armored personnel carrier, APC, belonging to Russian forces was detected at the edge of the forest. FPV drones were dispatched to the location, successfully striking and destroying the vehicle. March 18, 2025. Ukrainian drone operators carried out a series of precision strikes against Russian forces in the Kharkiv region. During the operation, multiple Ural and Bukhanka transport vehicles, 2 artillery pieces, a mortar, and enemy personnel entrenched in defensive positions were successfully targeted and destroyed. The most significant strike of the day was aimed at a key Russian communications hub. An FPV drone directly hit the building used by Russian signal operators, causing a massive explosion that ripped off its roof. With their communications disrupted and transport vehicles eliminated, the enemy's coordination in the area was severely crippled. March 9, 2025, Pokrovsk. Operators from the 144th Special Operations Forces Center descend into the industrial zone, executing a high-risk mission. Moving silently behind enemy lines, they advance toward a fortified Russian position. With precision, they plant explosives and obliterate the building housing enemy troops. A drone-mounted loudspeaker broadcasts a clear message: surrender is their only option. Moments later, a white cloth appears in the window, a desperate signal from within. Four Russian soldiers cautiously step outside, gripping the cloth as they approach Ukrainian positions, hands raised in submission. Their ranks soon grow. 5 more soldiers emerge, some limping, wounded from the blast. A Ukrainian SOF operator assists the injured prisoners, guiding them over debris and obstacles. By the end of the operation, 9 enemy soldiers have surrendered, now prisoners of war. March 1st to 5th, 2025. This is a summary of the combat operations conducted by the Phoenix unit of the Pomsta Brigade, specializing in strike drones. During the operations, 5 Russian soldiers were eliminated and 5 others were wounded. Additionally, the unit successfully destroyed or disabled key enemy assets, including 2 BMP-2 infantry fighting vehicles, two BTR-82 armored personnel carriers, one MTLB armored vehicle, two military transport vehicles, one FPV drone, one Russian UAV command center, three signal relays, one generator. These strikes crippled Russian logistics and command infrastructure in the region, limiting their ability to coordinate attacks. The destruction of the UAV command center significantly disrupted enemy reconnaissance capabilities, making Russian positions more vulnerable to further precision strikes. The dates are March 15th to 16th, 2025. Finally, we take a look at Donbass, Kherson, and Pokrovsk. These are the main areas where the Maguar Birds units have been fighting intensively. First, we are in Donbass. The results of these 2 intense days: 324 enemy targets were destroyed or neutralized. "116 enemy soldiers were eliminated. The Russians continued sending new waves of troops and equipment, but Ukrainian drone operators successfully halted their advance. Five tanks were destroyed. 81 vehicles were either destroyed or rendered unusable. However, the Russian army still has a large number of armored vehicles, so the primary focus remains on targeting enemy troops. During nighttime operations, FPV drones known as night doctors were deployed. During these missions, 79 remote mine-laying operations were conducted. 2 major enemy artillery batteries were destroyed. The 48-hour battle statistics are as follows. 1,309 FPV drone sorties were conducted. "403 FPV drones attacked enemy targets. 224 targets were eliminated by the night doctors. "579 wedding drones, small reconnaissance UAVs, were launched. "236 targets were detected and destroyed by reconnaissance drones. All these images correspond to the statistics from March 15th to 16th. In Pokrovsk, 42 enemy FPV drones were detected, 34 were shot down, achieving an 80% success rate. In Kherson, 56 FPV drones were detected, 28 were shot down, resulting in a 50% success rate. In total, 98 enemy FPV drones were intercepted, with 62 destroyed. The battles rage on, but Ukrainian forces continue to disrupt enemy advances, striking key targets and cutting off reinforcements. With precision drone strikes and coordinated attacks, every move counts. Stay tuned for more updates from the front lines.
January 2025. We will witness a detailed analysis of the successful repulsion of a major Russian offensive in the Civerki direction. As the enemy advances toward the village with armored vehicles, they are closely monitored by the Ukrainian defensive line. Russian forces enter the area with MTLB armored vehicles and continue their push forward. Although the road is lined with mine barriers, the first MTLB manages to pass without triggering one. The second MTLB, however, hits a mine, but the first continues advancing. At this point, anti-tank systems engage and strike the advancing MTLB. Despite the hit, the Russian armored vehicle continues moving. An FPV drone is deployed to attack, but even after this strike, the MTLB keeps going. Heavy bombardment drones are then prepared for another attack. The MTLB eventually halts and begins unloading its personnel. At this moment, the heavy bombardment drones target the drop-off points, delivering highly effective strikes, particularly using 2-kilogram anti-personnel munitions. The bombardment drone performs exceptionally well, neutralizing the invading forces. A group of Russian infantry reaches the defensive line and engages in direct combat, launching grenades and even attempting to throw an anti-tank mine into a defensive position. However, the Ukrainian defense forces respond swiftly, overwhelming the enemy with counterattacks. As the intense firefight continues, artillery support is unavailable due to the close proximity of friendly forces to the enemy. Following their failed assault, the Russian infantry decides to retreat. Their movement is significantly slowed by barbed wire obstacles, which are particularly effective during winter and night operations. The enemy tries to cross the wire using wooden planks. Meanwhile, artillery fire can be seen in the area. These are Russian artillery strikes. The Ukrainian army avoids using its own artillery in such situations to prevent endangering its troops. At this point, Ukrainian FPV drones are deployed, successfully striking and wounding Russian infantry. Shortly after, a Vampire drone arrives and launches its first attack. Consecutive bomb drops and FPV strikes eliminate all Russian infantry in the area. The remaining members of the Russian group stay further back, away from the main combat zone. However, Ukrainian forces detect these troops as well. The Russian soldiers are then eliminated with FPV drone strikes. By the end of the day, Ukrainian forces successfully repel the attack, neutralizing 30 enemy personnel and 5 armored vehicles. Throughout the battle, the coordinated efforts of aerial drone support and defensive units played a crucial role in ensuring the failure of the Russian assault. March 2025. Ukrainian paratroopers of the 95th Air Assault Brigade detect Russian mechanized units in the Kursk region and launch a major operation. Russian forces enter the area with armored vehicles, but Ukrainian troops swiftly counterattack, targeting these vehicles. As a result of the inflicted damage, the vehicles are forced to stop, and the Russian personnel inside dismount. However, Ukrainian forces seize the opportunity to launch a second assault, neutralizing both the vehicles and the Russian infantry accompanying them. Following the attack, the remaining armored vehicles are destroyed one by one. Some surviving Russian infantrymen attempt to flee to different locations in the area. However, Ukrainian forces continue the pursuit, eliminating them one by one and solidifying the operation's success. These Russian troops have no chance of escape due to Ukraine's effective tracking strategy. Some Russian infantry seek shelter in the ruins of a village, but they are soon detected and struck by Ukrainian drone operators. This highlights Ukraine's superior aerial capabilities, as drone strikes leave no safe haven for Russian forces and determine the outcome of the operation. Ultimately, Ukrainian troops repel the Russian assault, secure the area, and successfully defend their position. This operation, carried out with both ground forces and aerial support, demonstrates the highly integrated and effective nature of Ukraine's military strategy. March 4, 2025. In Sherbachka, Kharkiv region, Ukrainian reconnaissance teams detect Russian positions and relay their coordinates to higher command. Once the location data is verified, Ukrainian forces launch a pre-planned operation. The Russian positions in the area come under heavy artillery fire and kamikaze drone strikes. As explosions shake the front lines, Russian troops suffer heavy losses, and some soldiers are forced to abandon their positions. Cut off from support and unable to retreat, some Russian infantrymen attempt to survive by infiltrating and hiding in various structures within the area. However, Ukrainian forces, leveraging prior intelligence and advanced tracking systems, monitor enemy movements step by step. Using drones and thermal imaging systems, they scan the area, pinpointing the hidden Russian soldiers and conducting precision strikes. As a result of the successful attacks, all Russian infantry in the region are neutralized, solidifying Ukrainian control over Sherbachka. March 4, 2025. In the Tourett direction of the Donetsk region, 2 Ukrainian soldiers from the 12th Azov Special Forces Brigade of the Ukrainian National Guard encounter a Russian soldier while on patrol. The Russian soldier cautiously moves through a barbed wire enclosed area, unaware that a Ukrainian reconnaissance drone is tracking him from above. As the drone records his every move, the Ukrainian infantrymen observe him from a distance. It remains unclear why the Russian soldier is in the area, whether he is conducting reconnaissance, inspecting positions, or carrying out an operation. However, Ukrainian forces perceive his presence as a potential threat and continue to monitor him closely. Shortly after, the Ukrainian soldiers decide to act before the situation escalates further. They carefully emerge from their positions, take precise firing stances, and launch a sudden attack. Caught in intense gunfire, the Russian soldier is unable to flee or retaliate and is fatally shot on the spot. With the confrontation over, Ukrainian forces continue to secure the area, ensuring its safety. March 4, 2025. Reports indicate that Russia is facing severe logistical challenges which have become a key factor influencing the course of the conflict. Ukrainian forces are exploiting these weaknesses by inflicting significant damage on Russian convoys using FPV drones. These drones, capable of highly precise attacks and extremely cost-effective, have emerged as a formidable threat, successfully penetrating Russian defense lines. FPV drone strikes are disrupting Russian supply routes, further exposing the logistical difficulties faced by the Russian military. Footage from the battlefield highlights Russia's attempts to defend its logistical corridors, particularly in the area stretching from Bakhmut to Chasiv Yar. The Russians have deployed net structures designed to counter drone attacks. However, the long-term effectiveness of these measures remains questionable. While such defenses may provide temporary protection, they may not be a sustainable solution against Ukraine's low-cost yet highly effective weaponry, such as FPV drones. Ultimately, these developments underscore the vulnerabilities in Russia's logistics and defense systems, while also highlighting Ukraine's strategic advantage in deploying modern drone warfare. FPV drones have proven to be a serious threat to Russian forces, significantly impacting their supply chains. As a result, Ukraine's tactical use of these drones is being considered a game-changing move in the war. In response, Russia is likely to intensify its efforts to develop more effective countermeasures against this emerging threat. March 4, 2025. Drone pilots from the 5th Special Forces Omega Detachment detect a Russian infantryman during a reconnaissance mission in a wooded area. The Russian soldier is lying motionless on the ground while the surroundings are carefully observed. Footage reveals another Russian soldier lying nearby, partially covered. Although the first detected soldier attempts to conceal himself, small but critical details like this do not escape the attention of experienced observers. Had he moved without covering himself, he might not have become such an obvious target. However, this mistake proves fatal, leaving the soldiers defenseless against Ukraine's precision strike capabilities. The Ukrainian drone operator releases a bomb onto the detected target. The explosion instantly kills both Russian soldiers, shattering the eerie silence of the forest. This precise strike leaves a lasting impact on the Russian infantry in the area, once again demonstrating Ukraine's advanced strategy in target identification and effective drone warfare. Drones have become an invaluable tool for Ukraine in such operations, while posing a major threat to Russian forces. These targeted strikes symbolize a significant strategic shift in the nature of warfare. March 5, 2025. The 13th Charter. Brigade of the National Guard completes its preparations for a major operation in the Kharkiv region. After identifying Russian positions in the area, Ukrainian forces make a strategic decision to deploy their infantry using a vehicle. The entire operation is recorded in real time using a GoPro camera, capturing both the details of the military engagement and the intensity of the battle. The footage shows Ukrainian infantry rapidly advancing toward the Russian position after disembarking from the vehicle and launching their attack within moments. The assault begins swiftly and effectively, yet the confrontation soon evolves into a challenging tactical engagement. The video highlights the determined advance of Ukrainian troops and their precise targeting of weak points in the Russian defense line. As the battle unfolds, the available footage does not provide a clear outcome. However, reports from the area confirm that the operation was a success, with all Russian soldiers in the vicinity neutralized and the Russian defense line largely dismantled. This victory demonstrates the effectiveness of Ukraine's military strategy and its growing superiority over Russian forces. March 6, 2025. The 5th Assault Brigade achieves a significant development in the Kramatorsk region of Donetsk. After spotting a Russian soldier in the area, Ukrainian forces arrive at the location using a civilian vehicle. Despite the tense atmosphere of war, the Russian soldier offers no resistance. Instead of engaging in combat, he chooses to surrender to the Ukrainian troops. This decision may be influenced by his psychological factors, as the harsh realities of war and mental exhaustion are known to drive soldiers toward surrender. The Ukrainian infantry disembarks with professionalism, cautiously approaching the Russian soldier and maintaining strict security measures. They communicate effectively with him before securing his hands and escorting him safely into the vehicle. Ukrainian forces then proceed with his evacuation, reporting the operation as successfully completed. It is believed that the soldier's surrender may have been triggered by harsh weather conditions and extreme mental fatigue. Separated from his unit, his survival instincts and the difficult circumstances likely led him to give up. This event highlights the psychological dimensions of warfare, demonstrating how the relentless nature of battle profoundly affects soldiers' mental states. March 6, 2025. The reconnaissance unit of the NGU Azov 12th Brigade launches a significant operation near Tourett in the Donetsk region. This meticulously planned operation aims to clear the area of Russian forces and ensure security. The reconnaissance team searches villages one by one, identifying and neutralizing potential threats. Every village is examined as a possible danger source, but Ukrainian forces swiftly and effectively eliminate these threats. During the operation, Ukrainian soldiers achieve remarkable success. 50 Russian infantrymen are neutralized, demonstrating the efficiency and precision of the operation. Additionally, dozens of civilians in the area are safely evacuated. The protection of civilians remains a top priority in such military operations, and Ukrainian forces maintain a successful balance between military effectiveness and civilian safety. This operation highlights Ukraine's attention to both military strategy and humanitarian assistance. Considering the impact of the conflict on civilians, the humanitarian aspect of the operation is handled effectively. March 2025. The Ukrainian Luhansk Border Guard detachment detects Russian forces advancing towards Kyansk and swiftly mobilizes for an operation. The Russian units are often scattered in separate groups, making them easier targets for Ukraine's unmanned aerial vehicles. These UAVs pinpoint the locations of Russian forces, shaping Ukraine's operational strategy. At the outset of the operation, FPV drones are deployed. These drones precisely identify and strike Russian infantry, rapidly breaking their resistance. Some Russian soldiers attempt to take shelter inside village houses, but these structures fail to provide sufficient protection. Ukrainian forces launch drone attacks on these buildings, neutralizing both the houses and the Russian infantry inside. Following these strikes, Russian reinforcements are deployed using personnel carrier vehicles. However, these vehicles lack adequate protection against drone attacks. Ukrainian drone operators displaying high precision eliminate these transport vehicles. Some surviving Russian infantry retreat into nearby forests, but Ukraine's advanced tracking and attack tactics prevent them from escaping. Russian troops try to camouflage themselves within the wooded areas, but the dry trees fail to provide effective cover. Ukrainian drones exploit this weakness, eliminating the remaining Russian forces one by one. By the end of the operation, all Russian infantry in the area are neutralized and security is fully restored. March 2025. The Ukrainian 57th Motorized Brigade detects Russian infantry scattered and exhausted near Vovchansk. The harsh conditions of war have left these soldiers physically and mentally drained. With no secure locations in the area, the Russian troops have collapsed onto the ground merely to rest, completely defenseless and fatigued. This situation presents an opportunity for the Ukrainian forces. Seizing the enemy's moment of weakness, Ukrainian operators systematically target and neutralize these Russian infantrymen one by one, executing the operation slowly and methodically. While this operation may seem ruthless, it is one of the harsh realities of war. In a combat zone, prioritizing humanitarian emotions can lead to strategic vulnerability. Ukrainian forces assess that leaving these soldiers unchecked could pose a future threat during ongoing patrol operations. Therefore, neutralizing them is deemed a necessary step for Ukraine's security and operational success. Humanitarian sentiments on the battlefield often become obstacles to achieving strategic objectives. For a soldier, emotional weakness can be a severe threat in the struggle for survival. Aware of these challenges, Ukrainian troops operate with maximum efficiency under the brutal conditions of war. Despite the immense psychological toll and hardships faced by all combatants, this operation is viewed as an essential action for survival and victory. March 2025. The Ukrainian Arkham UAV unit, part of the 108th Battalion of the 10th Mountain Assault Brigade, quickly mobilizes after detecting Russian infantry in the Civerki region. To eliminate the target, Ukrainian forces deploy a strike drone to the area. The drone hits its designated point with pinpoint accuracy, and the force of the explosion severely injures the Russian troops, leaving them immobilized on the ground. The operation does not end there. To ensure that the target is completely neutralized, Ukrainian forces deploy a second drone. This second strike directly hits the target, causing another powerful explosion. As a result, 2 Russian infantrymen are killed. This operation once again demonstrates the effectiveness of unmanned aerial vehicles on the battlefield. The Arkham UAV team's precision strikes significantly limit the movement capabilities of Russian forces in the area, providing a crucial advantage to Ukrainian troops. March 11, 2025, the Ukrainian Armed Forces 30th and 54th mechanized Hunter aircrafts, along with the 80th Airborne Brigade, detect a large-scale Russian assault in the Civerki direction. Upon noticing the movement of Russian forces toward the area, Ukrainian forces quickly mobilize and, after confirming the enemy's positions, initiate artillery strikes. These strikes prove highly successful, resulting in the destruction of several Russian vehicles. As a result of Ukraine's intense bombardment, the area becomes shrouded in smoke. However, some Russian vehicles continue moving forward without being hit. These vehicles are accompanied by advancing Russian infantry who disembark and move toward the Ukrainian defensive lines. Ukrainian forces intervene using drones and precise artillery strikes. Initially, the Russian vehicles are destroyed, followed by the targeting and elimination of the infantry by drones. Despite the large force of Russian troops arriving in the area, they are unable to succeed against the Ukrainian defenses and technologically advanced drones. Ukrainian forces managed to neutralize over 30 Russian vehicles, while the Russian infantry deployed to the region is also struck by drones, resulting in their deaths. This operation enables Ukraine to repel a major Russian assault and secure the region. March 13, 2025. The 61st Motorized Brigade detects Russian infantry while patrolling the village of Kurylivka in the Kursk region. Ukrainian reconnaissance teams carefully observe enemy movements, identifying the soldiers' positions and possible escape routes. It is noted that the infantry is advancing in open terrain without finding a suitable area for cover. This provides an advantage to the Ukrainian forces. After some time, Ukrainian troops mobilize for the operation. First, a heavy reconnaissance flight is conducted in the area and enemy units are fully detected. Then, a Ukrainian drone operator begins the attack, directing an FPV drone to the target area. When the drone reaches the exact location where the Russian infantry has gathered, it drops a bomb with high precision. The explosion turns the area into a battlefield. A few Russian soldiers who survive the attack panic and try to escape. One of them heads toward the nearby forested area, intending to shoot down the drone following him. He fires his weapon at the drone but fails. The Ukrainian operator patiently follows the soldier's movements, waiting for the right moment. A few seconds later, a second attack is launched against the fleeing Russian infantry. The drone executes a perfect maneuver, strikes the target, and neutralizes the soldier. Meanwhile, other Russian infantry in the area are lying motionless on the ground. Ukrainian forces use unmanned aerial vehicles to ensure that all enemy troops are neutralized, detecting each soldier individually. The drones then destroy each target with precise strikes. As all the Russian infantry in the area are neutralized, Ukrainian forces successfully complete the operation and secure the area. This operation is recorded as an effective response to the Russian infantry's tactic of advancing in small groups in border areas. The Ukrainian army successfully limits enemy movements and maintains control over the region with such attacks. March 13, 2025. The K2 Battalion of the Mechanized Brigade, during its reconnaissance operation near the village of Kyansk in the Donetsk region, detected a Russian personnel carrier while tracking enemy movements. Ukrainian forces quickly mobilized and launched a direct attack on the target. Following the explosion, the Russian personnel in the vehicle were forced to exit. However, for the Ukrainian forces, this attack was just the beginning. As the Russian soldiers scattered due to the impact of the attack, Ukrainian forces carried out a second strike, causing significant losses and injuries to the Russian infantry. After the attack, surviving Russian soldiers began to flee, but they could not find a safe shelter in the area. The forested area around Verkhnekam-Yanska offered them temporary cover, but it was not a long-term solution. As they continued fleeing, Ukrainian operators, after continuous surveillance using drones, targeted the movements of the Russian infantry and initiated new strikes. One Russian soldier panicked, became a more obvious target as he ran. The soldier, now more vulnerable in open terrain, eventually lay down and tried to crawl to hide. However, during his attempts to conceal himself, he started running again and was still pursued in the open. As the drone approached, the Russian soldier became increasingly vulnerable with each passing second. A few minutes later, the Ukrainian drone successfully targeted him and neutralized him with a precise strike. At that moment, another Russian soldier trying to flee with the first one appeared on the scene. The two soldiers started running again, but this time the Ukrainian operator began following them closely. The drone operator carefully tracked their movements along the path the Russian infantry was taking. The soldiers noticed the drone approaching and briefly stopped, observing the drone in a fixed position. This moment was likely when they anticipated that the Ukrainian drone would attack and that they would try to maneuver to escape. However, it was also evident that the condition of the previously injured Russian soldier was quite severe. The Ukrainian drone operator, timing the attack perfectly, launched a final strike. The explosion not only neutralized one Russian soldier, but also the other soldier who had been fleeing with him. After the explosion, both Russian infantrymen were killed. March 14, 2025. The motorized rifle brigade detected a Russian ATV group near Basivka in the Sumy region. This movement was immediately tracked by Ukraine's unmanned aerial vehicles. The footage showed that the Russian forces were notably cautious as they entered the area. However, as soon as the Russians became aware of the Ukrainian drones, they dismounted from their vehicles and quickly fled into the forest. This movement occurred simultaneously with the initiation of the Ukrainian attack. During these tense moments, the Russian infantry experienced significant panic. As they tried to flee deeper into the terrain, they began reboarding their vehicles in an attempt to escape the area. The panic experienced by the Russian group put them in a difficult situation. The group, unable to organize quickly, struggled to start their vehicles and reach a safe zone, but they were targeted again by Ukrainian forces. Thanks to the effectiveness of the Ukrainian operation, the group was attacked before they could reorganize and began to disperse more with each passing second. This disarray created a major vulnerability in the Russians' intervention and escape strategies. As the operation progressed, Ukrainian forces continued targeted drone strikes, leaving the Russian infantry scattered and highly vulnerable. In the following stages, the Russian attempts to regain control of the chaotic situation were unsuccessful. Reports indicate that at this point, the Russian military group was effectively neutralized. All of them were killed in the attack, March 12, 2025. The Hunters of the Heights, Unmanned Systems Battalion of the Airborne Brigade continued its reconnaissance operations in the region, successfully detecting Russian shelters and strategic equipment. With the help of advanced reconnaissance technologies and drone usage, Ukrainian forces precisely located Russian positions. After confirming the coordinates, they mobilized to launch an attack. Ukraine's operation was swift and effective. Drones targeted all Russian shelters in the area, destroying each one individually. Each strike was carried out with great accuracy, and the Russian positions were wiped out without even having the opportunity to defend themselves. Ukraine's unmanned systems provided a significant strategic advantage in the region through their target detection and strike capabilities. Later, Ukrainian forces targeted Russian personnel carrier vehicles and ammunition depots located around the shelters. These vehicles provided mobility to Russian troops while also offering logistical and ammunition support. As a result of successful drone strikes, these vehicles and the ammunition depot were also destroyed. Immediately following the attacks, Russian forces in the area suffered heavy losses and morale decline. At the end of the operation, Ukrainian forces had destroyed 5 Russian shelters, 3 personnel carrier vehicles, and 1 ammunition depot in the region. March 14, 2025. During reconnaissance operations in the region, Ukrainian forces spot a Russian infantryman advancing alone. As the Russian soldier continues to move forward, he is tracked by a Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicle. After a while, the Ukrainian drone launches an attack, and the Russian soldier is suddenly shaken by the explosion. The Russian infantryman quickly reacts by firing at the drone but fails to hit it. However, as he attempts to move another step forward, he is once again targeted by an FPV drone. At the moment of the explosion, the Russian soldier is severely wounded but survives. After observing the situation, Ukrainian forces send another FPV drone. This time, the explosion is much stronger. During the attack, it is likely that the ammunition in the Russian soldier's backpack is triggered, significantly amplifying the explosion. The powerful blast ultimately kills the Russian infantryman. Following this successful strike, Ukrainian forces continue their reconnaissance activities and detect mines near a Russian shelter in the area. Ukrainian operators immediately take action and deploy an FPV drone to strike the targets with pinpoint accuracy. After the explosion, a massive blast occurs, destroying a Russian ammunition depot. This operation showcases Ukraine's precise reconnaissance and targeting capabilities while inflicting significant damage on enemy positions, thereby enhancing operational effectiveness. March 13, 2025. The Black Raven Unmanned Systems Battalion of the Ukrainian Forces detects a Russian ammunition depot during reconnaissance operations in the region. Reports indicate that the target is a fuel depot. Ukraine proceeds with an attack using a Vampire drone, launching several bombs at the target. The strikes from the Vampire drone effectively destroy the ammunition and fuel in the depot. After the attack, Ukrainian forces continue their operation and move on to other targets in the area. Shortly after, as Ukrainian forces continue scanning the area, they spot 3 Russian infantrymen. The Russian soldiers, unaware of the Ukrainian drones tracking them, move toward their positions. The Ukrainian operator identifies the Russian soldiers inside a shelter and begins bombing the target with the Vampire drone. The bombs dropped in quick succession effectively collapse the Russian shelter. As significant destruction occurs in the shelter, Ukrainian forces deploy an FPV drone to deliver the final blow. With this final attack, the shelter and the 3 Russian infantrymen inside are completely destroyed. This operation demonstrates Ukraine's precision in executing attacks and its effective use of unmanned aerial vehicles, which severely damage Russian positions and establish strategic superiority on the battlefield. Ukrainian forces also detect an electronic device belonging to Russian forces in the area. According to reports, the device is referred to as the Ryb Groza Yum complex and is used against drones. Ukrainian forces strike and destroy the device with an FPV drone. The Groza series is a Belarusian-made radio-electronic warfare (REB) system designed to counter UAVs and other radio-controlled threats. These systems are designed to disrupt the control of enemy drones, block their signals, or render them ineffective by sending deceptive signals. These systems are actively used by the Russian army to suppress, disrupt, and neutralize Ukrainian UAVs and drones on the battlefield. Russia has been deploying electronic warfare systems on a large scale to counter Ukraine's drone attacks. Versions such as Groza S, Groza R, and Groza 6 can block signal reception or disrupt navigation systems of Ukrainian reconnaissance and strike drones, providing Russian forces with protection from aerial threats. However, Ukraine is working to counter Russia's REB systems by developing its own electronic warfare systems and seeking support from the West. In particular, drone control via Starlink and other satellite systems offers an alternative to Russian electronic jamming, providing Ukraine with a way to mitigate the effects of electronic suppression. March 13, 2025, Ukrainian forces are conducting a comprehensive reconnaissance and attack operation targeting Russian positions and units in the Zaporizhzhia region. Recent operations in the area highlight how Ukraine effectively operates with targeted precision strategies and technological superiority. These operations further demonstrate the strength of the tactical strategies Ukraine employs to break through Russia's defense lines. The operation begins with reconnaissance flights, where Ukrainian forces utilize unmanned aerial vehicles to detect Russian infantry moving alone in the area. The drones track the movements of the Russian soldiers, identifying even the smallest target, and then sequentially carry out attacks. These precise strikes lead to the neutralization of a significant portion of the Russian infantry. The drones target not only the Russian soldiers but also nearby defense lines and positions. Many Russian soldiers take cover in the ruined structures in the area, but these are closely monitored by Ukrainian reconnaissance drones. While Russian forces attempt to use destroyed buildings in the villages as shelters, Ukrainian operators pay special attention to these areas. The reconnaissance drones detect even the slightest movements in these regions and initiate attacks. After detecting Russian shelters, the drones are precisely aimed at the targets and destroyed. This strategy on the battlefield shows how Ukraine is not only using ground operations, but also effectively deploying electronic reconnaissance and attack tactics to put the enemy in a difficult position. As Russian positions are eliminated, armored vehicles and weapon systems in the area are also targeted. At the end of the operations, a significant number of Russian soldiers in strategic positions are neutralized. With these successful operations, Ukrainian forces considerably weaken Russian defenses in the Zaporizhzhia region and gain a strategic advantage over the area. The reconnaissance and attack capabilities provided by the drones reinforce Ukraine's tactical superiority at this stage of the war. March 11, 2025, the Ukrainian Armed Forces 30th and 54th mechanized Hunter aircrafts, along with the 80th Airborne Brigade, detect a large-scale Russian assault in the Civerki direction. Upon noticing the movement of Russian forces toward the area, Ukrainian forces quickly mobilize and, after confirming the enemy's positions, initiate artillery strikes. These strikes prove highly successful, resulting in the destruction of several Russian vehicles. As a result of Ukraine's intense bombardment, the area becomes shrouded in smoke. However, some Russian vehicles continue moving forward without being hit. These vehicles are accompanied by advancing Russian infantry who disembark and move toward the Ukrainian defensive lines. Ukrainian forces intervene using drones and precise artillery strikes. Initially, the Russian vehicles are destroyed, followed by the targeting and elimination of the infantry by drones. Despite the large force of Russian troops arriving in the area, they are unable to succeed against the Ukrainian defenses and technologically advanced drones. Ukrainian forces managed to neutralize over 30 Russian vehicles, while the Russian infantry deployed to the region is also struck by drones, resulting in their deaths. This operation enables Ukraine to repel a major Russian assault and secure the region. March 13, 2025. The 61st Motorized Brigade detects Russian infantry while patrolling the village of Kurilivka in the Kursk region. Ukrainian reconnaissance teams carefully observe enemy movements, identifying the soldiers' positions and possible escape routes. It is noted that the infantry is advancing in open terrain without finding a suitable area for cover. This provides an advantage to the Ukrainian forces. After some time, Ukrainian troops mobilize for the operation. First, a heavy reconnaissance flight is conducted in the area and enemy units are fully detected. Then, a Ukrainian drone operator begins the attack, directing an FPV drone to the target area. When the drone reaches the exact location where the Russian infantry has gathered, it drops a bomb with high precision. The explosion turns the area into a battlefield. A few Russian soldiers who survive the attack panic and try to escape. One of them heads toward the nearby forested area, intending to shoot down the drone following him. He fires his weapon at the drone but fails. The Ukrainian operator patiently follows the soldiers' movements, waiting for the right moment. A few seconds later, a second attack is launched against the fleeing Russian infantry. The drone executes a perfect maneuver, strikes the target, and neutralizes the soldier. Meanwhile, other Russian infantry in the area are lying motionless on the ground. Ukrainian forces use unmanned aerial vehicles to ensure that all enemy troops are neutralized, detecting each soldier individually. The drones then destroy each target with precise strikes. As all the Russian infantry in the area are neutralized, Ukrainian forces successfully complete the operation and secure the area. This operation is recorded as an effective response to the Russian infantry's tactic of advancing in small groups in border areas. The Ukrainian army successfully limits enemy movements and maintains control over the region with such attacks. March 13, 2025. The K2 Battalion of the Mechanized Brigade, during its reconnaissance operation near the village of Kyansk in the Donetsk region, detected a Russian personnel carrier while tracking enemy movements. Ukrainian forces quickly mobilized and launched a direct attack on the target. Following the explosion, the Russian personnel in the vehicle were forced to exit. However, for the Ukrainian forces, this attack was just the beginning. As the Russian soldiers scattered due to the impact of the attack, Ukrainian forces carried out a second strike, causing significant losses and injuries to the Russian infantry. After the attack, surviving Russian soldiers began to flee, but they could not find a safe shelter in the area. The forested area around Kyansk offered them temporary cover, but it was not a long-term solution. As they continued fleeing, Ukrainian operators, after continuous surveillance using drones, targeted the movements of the Russian infantry and initiated new strikes. One Russian soldier panicked, became a more obvious target as he ran. The soldier, now more vulnerable in open terrain, eventually lay down and tried to crawl to hide. However, during his attempts to conceal himself, he started running again and was still pursued in the open. As the drone approached, the Russian soldier became increasingly vulnerable with each passing second. A few minutes later, the Ukrainian drone successfully targeted him and neutralized him with a precise strike. At that moment, another Russian soldier trying to flee with the first one appeared on the scene. The two soldiers started running again, but this time the Ukrainian operator began following them closely. The drone operator carefully tracked their movements along the path the Russian infantry was taking. The soldiers noticed the drone approaching and briefly stopped, observing the drone in a fixed position. This moment was likely when they anticipated that the Ukrainian drone would attack and that they would try to maneuver to escape. However, it was also evident that the condition of the previously injured Russian soldier was quite severe. The Ukrainian drone operator, timing the attack perfectly, launched a final strike. The explosion not only neutralized one Russian soldier, but also the other soldier who had been fleeing with him. After the explosion, both Russian infantrymen were killed. March 14, 2025. The motorized rifle brigade detected a Russian ATV group near Basivka in the Sumy region. This movement was immediately tracked by Ukraine's unmanned aerial vehicles. The footage showed that the Russian forces were notably cautious as they entered the area. However, as soon as the Russians became aware of the Ukrainian drones, they dismounted from their vehicles and quickly fled into the forest. This movement occurred simultaneously with the initiation of the Ukrainian attack. During these tense moments, the Russian infantry experienced significant panic. As they tried to flee deeper into the terrain, they began reboarding their vehicles in an attempt to escape the area. The panic experienced by the Russian group put them in a difficult situation. The group, unable to organize quickly, struggled to start their vehicles and reach a safe zone, but they were targeted again by Ukrainian forces. Thanks to the effectiveness of the Ukrainian operation, the group was attacked before they could reorganize and began to disperse more with each passing second. This disarray created a major vulnerability in the Russians' intervention and escape strategies. As the operation progressed, Ukrainian forces continued targeted drone strikes, leaving the Russian infantry scattered and highly vulnerable. In the following stages, the Russian attempts to regain control of the chaotic situation were unsuccessful. Reports indicate that at this point, the Russian military group was effectively neutralized. All of them were killed in the attack, March 12, 2025. The Hunters of the Heights, Unmanned Systems Battalion of the Airborne Brigade continued its reconnaissance operations in the region, successfully detecting Russian shelters and strategic equipment. With the help of advanced reconnaissance technologies and drone usage, Ukrainian forces precisely located Russian positions. After confirming the coordinates, they mobilized to launch an attack. Ukraine's operation was swift and effective. Drones targeted all Russian shelters in the area, destroying each one individually. Each strike was carried out with great accuracy, and the Russian positions were wiped out without even having the opportunity to defend themselves. Ukraine's unmanned systems provided a significant strategic advantage in the region through their target detection and strike capabilities. Later, Ukrainian forces targeted Russian personnel carrier vehicles and ammunition depots located around the shelters. These vehicles provided mobility to Russian troops while also offering logistical and ammunition support. As a result of successful drone strikes, these vehicles and the ammunition depot were also destroyed. Immediately following the attacks, Russian forces in the area suffered heavy losses and morale decline. At the end of the operation, Ukrainian forces had destroyed 5 Russian shelters, 3 personnel carrier vehicles, and 1 ammunition depot in the region. March 14, 2025. During reconnaissance operations in the region, Ukrainian forces spot a Russian infantryman advancing alone. As the Russian soldier continues to move forward, he is tracked by a Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicle. After a while, the Ukrainian drone launches an attack, and the Russian soldier is suddenly shaken by the explosion. The Russian infantryman quickly reacts by firing at the drone but fails to hit it. However, as he attempts to move another step forward, he is once again targeted by an FPV drone. At the moment of the explosion, the Russian soldier is severely wounded but survives. After observing the situation, Ukrainian forces send another FPV drone. This time, the explosion is much stronger. During the attack, it is likely that the ammunition in the Russian soldier's backpack is triggered, significantly amplifying the explosion. The powerful blast ultimately kills the Russian infantryman. Following this successful strike, Ukrainian forces continue their reconnaissance activities and detect mines near a Russian shelter in the area. Ukrainian operators immediately take action and deploy an FPV drone to strike the targets with pinpoint accuracy. After the explosion, a massive blast occurs, destroying a Russian ammunition depot. This operation showcases Ukraine's precise reconnaissance and targeting capabilities while inflicting significant damage on enemy positions, thereby enhancing operational effectiveness. March 13, 2025. The Black Raven Unmanned Systems Battalion of the Ukrainian Forces detects a Russian ammunition depot during reconnaissance operations in the region. Reports indicate that the target is a fuel depot. Ukraine proceeds with an attack using a Vampire drone, launching several bombs at the target. The strikes from the Vampire drone effectively destroy the ammunition and fuel in the depot. After the attack, Ukrainian forces continue their operation and move on to other targets in the area. Shortly after, as Ukrainian forces continue scanning the area, they spot 3 Russian infantrymen. The Russian soldiers, unaware of the Ukrainian drones tracking them, move toward their positions. The Ukrainian operator identifies the Russian soldiers inside a shelter and begins bombing the target with the Vampire drone. The bombs dropped in quick succession effectively collapse the Russian shelter. As significant destruction occurs in the shelter, Ukrainian forces deploy an FPV drone to deliver the final blow. With this final attack, the shelter and the 3 Russian infantrymen inside are completely destroyed. This operation demonstrates Ukraine's precision in executing attacks and its effective use of unmanned aerial vehicles, which severely damage Russian positions and establish strategic superiority on the battlefield. Ukrainian forces also detect an electronic device belonging to Russian forces in the area. According to reports, the device is referred to as the Ryb Groza Yum complex and is used against drones. Ukrainian forces strike and destroy the device with an FPV drone. The Groza series is a Belarusian-made radio-electronic warfare (REB) system designed to counter UAVs and other radio-controlled threats. These systems are designed to disrupt the control of enemy drones, block their signals, or render them ineffective by sending deceptive signals. These systems are actively used by the Russian army to suppress, disrupt, and neutralize Ukrainian UAVs and drones on the battlefield. Russia has been deploying electronic warfare systems on a large scale to counter Ukraine's drone attacks. Versions such as Groza S, Groza R, and Groza 6 can block signal reception or disrupt navigation systems of Ukrainian reconnaissance and strike drones, providing Russian forces with protection from aerial threats. However, Ukraine is working to counter Russia's REB systems by developing its own electronic warfare systems and seeking support from the West. In particular, drone control via Starlink and other satellite systems offers an alternative to Russian electronic jamming, providing Ukraine with a way to mitigate the effects of electronic suppression. March 13, 2025, Ukrainian forces are conducting a comprehensive reconnaissance and attack operation targeting Russian positions and units in the Zaporizhzhia region. Recent operations in the area highlight how Ukraine effectively operates with targeted precision strategies and technological superiority. These operations further demonstrate the strength of the tactical strategies Ukraine employs to break through Russia's defense lines. The operation begins with reconnaissance flights, where Ukrainian forces utilize unmanned aerial vehicles to detect Russian infantry moving alone in the area. The drones track the movements of the Russian soldiers, identifying even the smallest target, and then sequentially carry out attacks. These precise strikes lead to the neutralization of a significant portion of the Russian infantry. The drones target not only the Russian soldiers but also nearby defense lines and positions. Many Russian soldiers take cover in the ruined structures in the area, but these are closely monitored by Ukrainian reconnaissance drones. While Russian forces attempt to use destroyed buildings in the villages as shelters, Ukrainian operators pay special attention to these areas. The reconnaissance drones detect even the slightest movements in these regions and initiate attacks. After detecting Russian shelters, the drones are precisely aimed at the targets and destroyed. This strategy on the battlefield shows how Ukraine is not only using ground operations, but also effectively deploying electronic reconnaissance and attack tactics to put the enemy in a difficult position. As Russian positions are eliminated, armored vehicles and weapon systems in the area are also targeted. At the end of the operations, a significant number of Russian soldiers in strategic positions are neutralized. With these successful operations, Ukrainian forces considerably weaken Russian defenses in the Zaporizhzhia region and gain a strategic advantage over the area. The reconnaissance and attack capabilities provided by the drones reinforce Ukraine's tactical superiority at this stage of the war. This video showcases a successful operation by Ukrainian forces. Ukrainian troops advance towards Russian positions, forcing them to retreat. Russian soldiers lose the defensive positions they had previously occupied and abandon the area. The Ukrainian forces make a strong entrance into the area, utilizing 3 Soviet-era tanks and 5 armored vehicles. On the Russian side, there is only 1 tank, which clearly appears uncertain about how to respond. It seems the Russian troops realize that resisting the vastly superior Ukrainian assault is impossible and choose to withdraw. Meanwhile, Ukrainian tanks effectively suppress the resistance of Russian soldiers in the trenches, securing control over the area. Afterward, Ukrainian infantry disembark from their vehicles and advance toward the trenches. Boldly entering enemy positions, Ukrainian troops successfully take control of the area without any casualties. This location will serve as an important strategic foothold for Ukraine's future offensives. The only remaining Russian tank attempts to escape upon encountering a Ukrainian tank, as its crew decides not to engage in combat and withdraws. However, one of the Ukrainian tanks pursues the Russian tank, closing the distance to just 20 meters. The 2 tanks are separated by a narrow wooded area, and the footage captures the moment when the Ukrainian tank fires at the Russian tank from close range. A few seconds later, a second shot is fired. These 2 precise hits take their toll on the Russian tank. Another drone camera clearly records the impact of the strikes. Here comes the first shot, and now the second shot. Although the tank does not explode, it is rendered completely inoperable. The fate of the crew remains unknown. After completing its mission, the Ukrainian tank slowly withdraws to avoid detection by Russian reconnaissance units. This operation once again highlights Ukraine's tactical superiority and the power of well-timed strikes. March 13, 2025. The Ukrainian Defense Forces continue to intensively carry out their operations in the region, systematically destroying abandoned Russian armored vehicles one by one. These vehicles are usually left behind in haste during Russian forces' attack attempts. As a result of strong counterattacks from Ukrainian troops, the Ukrainian forces are systematically carrying out the destruction process to prevent these armored vehicles from being recaptured and used by Russian infantry. Particularly, some Russian soldiers who survive large-scale convoy attacks are trying to survive in small groups or completely alone. These soldiers, physically and mentally exhausted, are being detected and neutralized by Ukrainian forces. Some Russian infantrymen attempt to seek shelter in abandoned and ruined buildings in the area to survive. However, these attempts generally fail. Special operations teams detect and eliminate these soldiers. As a result of the ongoing operations, Ukrainian forces are making significant progress in securing the region by neutralizing a large number of Russian soldiers and a substantial amount of ammunition. At the same time, continuous intelligence and reconnaissance activities are being carried out to weaken the operational capacity of Russian forces in the region. March 12, 2025. The Perun group from the 79th Airborne Assault Brigade detects a moving Russian soldier in the area during its reconnaissance operations. The enemy soldier has covered himself with a camouflage tarp in an attempt to blend in with the surroundings and avoid detection. However, due to the terrain structure, this camouflage proves ineffective, and the Ukrainian reconnaissance units spot him easily. To neutralize the target, Ukrainian forces deploy a Vampir kamikaze drone. The drone drops a bomb directly on the Russian soldier, causing a powerful explosion. The Russian soldier, severely injured by the blast, is rendered immobile. Ukrainian forces then send a second bomb to ensure the enemy is completely neutralized. The second explosion ends the soldier's life, successfully completing the operation. March 13, 2025. The Rubezh Brigade, part of the Ukrainian forces, continues its reconnaissance operations in the region, following the repulsion of Russian attacks. The main objective of these operations is to eliminate surviving soldiers who have scattered after failed Russian assault attempts and could potentially pose new threats. Particularly after the Russian forces retreat, the surviving soldiers in the region often remain in small groups or alone, continuously creating irregular threats. These types of threats can further increase Russian casualties while posing significant risks to Ukrainian forces' control over the region. During the reconnaissance operations conducted by the Rubizh Brigade, Ukrainian forces identify scattered Russian soldiers and then launch drone-assisted attacks. Explosive-laden drones are directed toward the targets, carrying out effective airstrikes. These aerial assaults are executed with high-impact explosives on the positions of Russian soldiers, and the intensity of the explosions almost completely eliminates their chances of survival. The major advantage of such attacks is that the enemy lacks the strength to defend themselves, allowing Ukrainian forces to carry out high-efficiency operations without taking significant risks. Most Russian soldiers, already incapacitated due to severe fatigue, hunger, and exhaustion, lack the capacity to resist these attacks. Moreover, the absence of active defensive lines in the region ensures that these soldiers become easy targets. As a result of the operations, numerous Russian infantrymen who could have posed a threat are neutralized. These reconnaissance and elimination operations not only ensure regional security but also weaken the Russian army's morale and logistics. This in turn reinforces Ukraine's military superiority and provides a significant advantage in the ongoing stages of the war. March 15, 2025. The 24th Separate Mechanized Brigade continues its operations in the Chasiv Yar and Donetsk regions, while reconnaissance teams detect 2 Russian soldiers. One of the soldiers is seen crawling under a wrecked armored vehicle, likely attempting to hide ammunition or supplies. However, this movement does not go unnoticed by the Ukrainian forces. Ukrainian forces quickly launch a drone-assisted attack to neutralize the target. An explosive-laden drone is directed straight at the Russian soldier under the armored vehicle, resulting in an explosion. The blast instantly kills the Russian soldier, and the detonation of ammunition inside the vehicle causes it to catch fire and become completely unusable. The other Russian soldier is found hiding in a nearby pit, attempting to survive. However, this attempt also fails. Ukrainian reconnaissance teams use heat and motion sensors to locate the soldier and then launch another drone strike, neutralizing him as well. Other Russian soldiers in the area are also detected and eliminated one by one using the same method. As a result of the operation, numerous Russian infantrymen are neutralized, while Ukrainian forces maintain full control of the field. These rapid and effective reconnaissance strike operations prevent Russian forces from reorganizing, further solidifying Ukraine's superiority in the region. March 15, 2025. The 63rd Mechanized Brigade continues its operations in the region and establishes contact with Russian infantry. Reconnaissance teams detect a Russian soldier attempting to crawl along the ground. The soldier likely uses this method in an attempt to avoid detection and survive, but Ukrainian forces quickly spot him. The soldier is targeted by a drone strike and is immediately neutralized by the explosion. As reconnaissance activities continue in the area, 2 more Russian soldiers are detected. One of these soldiers is experiencing a physical issue, and his comrade is attempting to assist him. Nervously checking their surroundings, the soldiers are aware that they could be targeted by a drone strike at any moment, and they attempt to move forward in a vulnerable state. Just as this is happening, Ukrainian forces launch an attack, neutralizing both soldiers with an explosive-laden drone. During the operation, Ukrainian forces conducting reconnaissance activities detect Russian bunkers and military equipment in the area. Ukrainian operators target these sites with drone strikes, completely destroying them. According to reports, Ukrainian forces also intercept Russian radio communications during the operation. The conversations reveal that Russian soldiers are fighting among themselves, constantly complaining about drones and expressing concerns that they cannot resupply their positions due to broken logistical lines. This situation highlights increasing morale problems and chaos within the Russian ranks, while also demonstrating the effectiveness of Ukraine's operational superiority with unmanned aerial vehicles. March 15, 2025, the Azov Special Forces Brigade conducts reconnaissance operations in the Tourett region and detects Russian troop movements. Russian soldiers attempting to provide logistical support to the area using various vehicles do not escape the attention of Ukrainian operators. These vehicles, lacking sufficient security, become the target of Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles. Drone strikes are directly directed at the vehicles, ensuring their destruction along with the Russian infantry inside. The explosions cause the vehicles to catch fire, and the ammunition and fuel inside detonate, resulting in widespread destruction. Russian infantry in the area are also detected one by Ukrainian reconnaissance drones. Soldiers attempting to move around vulnerably or seeking shelter are neutralized through drone strikes. As a result of the operation, numerous Russian munitions, military vehicles, and infantry are destroyed, further strengthening Ukrainian forces' control over the field. These precision strikes weaken Russian supply and logistics lines, limiting their mobility on the battlefield and solidifying Ukraine's strategic superiority. March 16, 2025. In the following footage, we witness Russian soldiers entering the region with logistical vehicles, while Ukrainian forces launch an attack. Due to the weather conditions, the rough terrain is visibly causing the vehicle to shake. Under these harsh conditions, as the Russian forces are on the move, they pass by another vehicle that had been previously attacked. They likely detonate an inactive explosive, causing an explosion, though we cannot be certain of this. Following the explosion, Russian infantry disembark from the vehicle and attempt to seek cover. Another similar scene shows Russian forces being attacked while traveling by vehicle. At first glance, it appears the vehicle has hit a mine. However, according to reports, this attack actually originates from a Ukrainian drone strike. If they had truly hit a mine, the explosion would have been much larger. After the explosion, Russian infantry quickly disembark from the vehicle, and one Russian soldier catches fire from the intensity of the blast, falling to the ground in flames. His comrades immediately attempt to assist him. Operating in these dangerous terrains with unprotected vehicles is extremely risky. In these footage, highlight the vulnerability of Russian logistical and transportation lines, and demonstrate once again the effectiveness of Ukraine's UAV strikes. In both scenes, no further information is provided about the fate of the Russian soldiers, but these types of attacks reflect the intense and destructive nature of the ongoing war. March 16, 2025. Ukrainian forces from the Phoenix border guards detect a Russian tank in the Donetsk region. After confirming its location, the Ukrainian units quickly mobilize. Due to the increasing number of drone strikes in recent times, the Russians have modified their armored vehicles to provide extra protection against such attacks. This tank is also reinforced, but these modifications fail to hinder Ukrainian operational capabilities. The Ukrainian forces initiate their attack using an FPV drone. The drone's precise targeting capabilities allow it to strike the tank with accuracy, delivering an effective hit. Following this, they deploy Vampire drones, dropping a series of bombs onto the Russian tank. The resulting explosions cause significant structural damage, weakening the tank's defenses. As smoke begins to rise from the vehicle, it becomes evident that the armored unit is now compromised. Finally, a second FPV drone is deployed to deliver the finishing blow, completely destroying the tank. This operation once again highlights the effectiveness of drone technology on the battlefield. Despite the modifications made to Russian armored vehicles, Ukrainian forces continue to execute swift and decisive attacks, restricting Russian movement in the region. Such precision strikes serve as a critical strategic move, further solidifying Ukraine's operational superiority. March 16, 2025. In the upcoming footage, we will witness remarkable operations recently carried out by the Black Raven operators of the Ukrainian forces. Ukrainian reconnaissance units are conducting an extensive scouting process to detect enemy positions and execute precise strikes against Russian troops operating in the region. During this process, the movement patterns and behaviors of Russian infantry on the move are carefully analyzed. Unknowingly, Russian soldiers reveal the locations of trenches, bunkers, and supply points, providing critical intelligence to Ukrainian forces. Ukrainian operators assess the gathered data to identify target areas and formulate their operational plans accordingly. One of the primary objectives of the Black Raven operators is to cripple enemy logistics and eliminate their ability to sustain trench warfare. To achieve this, identified enemy bunkers, ammunition depots, and supply vehicles are carefully selected as priority targets for precision strikes. Following the reconnaissance phase, drone operators take over, focusing primarily on eliminating multiple targets in rapid succession. This strategy is crucial in preventing Russian forces from regrouping and maintaining continuous pressure on them, significantly diminishing their combat effectiveness. During the operation, Russian infantry hiding in bunkers or moving across open terrain are detected one by one. These soldiers often attempt to transition between trenches or conduct reconnaissance missions to secure their positions, unaware of Ukrainian surveillance. However, Ukrainian reconnaissance drones swiftly identify such movements and conduct detailed analysis. Once bunker locations are confirmed, drone operators launch direct airstrikes, destroying these structures. The explosives dropped by drones cause large-scale devastation, leaving Russian soldiers inside or nearby with little chance of escape. Additionally, Russian vehicles attempting to provide logistical support in the area are closely monitored by Ukrainian forces. Supply convoys carrying military equipment, fuel, and ammunition are frequently detected during reconnaissance missions and subsequently targeted with precision strikes. Explosive-laden guided drones effectively destroy Russian military trucks, armored vehicles transporting ammunition, and mobile logistics convoys. As a result, supply lines suffer severe disruptions, making it increasingly difficult for Russian forces to acquire the resources they need on the battlefield.